As I mentioned, now we're going to talk about the Florida game. Alabama hosts Florida in what will be a very, very big top 5 matchup in Coleman Coliseum. Alabama currently sits at 7 in the AP poll. Auburn currently sits at 5th in the AP poll, with Tennessee jumping them, taking over that 4th spot. This is a game that if Alabama wants to try to be a 1 seed still, is a must win. If you win this game, there is a chance that you still get the number 4 1 seed, potentially even number 3, depending upon how things shake out. If you lose this game, you are all but guaranteed to be a 2 seed. Granted, obviously Alabama made the NCAA tournament and made the Final Four last season as a 4 seed, so it is possible, but obviously the higher ranking that you can get, the better off and better chance you have to making a run in the NCAA tournament. The seeding just works out that way, that you get the lower ranked teams, the higher seed you are, right? This just makes sense. Also, potentially, if you get a 1 seed or a 2 seed, you may get a place closer for your fans to be able to travel, albeit Indianapolis instead of like in San Francisco, right? When you look at what some of the host sites are for this season. So that is just something to keep in mind. This game will determine whether Alabama even has an outside chance at a 1 seed still, or is it pretty much a 2 seed lock for the University of Alabama. So what do we need to talk about when we look at this game? First things first, Florida is a very good team on both ends of the basketball. They're a team that likes to play fast. This game will be up and down. This game will be lightning fast. Florida and Kentucky played earlier this season in Rupp. It was 106-100, right? I don't know that that's what we see out of this game. I think that Alabama and Florida are both better defensive teams than that. I think Alabama is going to pride themselves on their defense a little more than that. So I would not suspect this game to be both in the triple digits, but I would expect this game to be in the high 70 possession range, probably 76 or higher. Wouldn't shock me if we saw 77, 78 possessions. And I also would expect that this game is going to be higher scoring, right? These are some elite offenses that really execute at high levels. Even though these are good defenses they're going against, the offenses, in my opinion, are just that step above, that step better than the defenses. So I do expect that Alabama is going, and Florida are both going to be able to score points on each other. Again, I do not expect to be quite as bad as that Florida-Kentucky game that happened earlier this season. So in my mind, I think this comes down to the guards. Right, it's the battle of the guards, the battle of the big guys. When you look at the battle of the guards, you're looking at Mark Sears versus Walter Clayton. You're looking at LeBaron Philon versus like an Elijah Martin. You're looking at like Will Richard. You're looking at some of these guys, and I think that from a 3-headed attack, I think that Florida is as good as anybody in the country. All 3 guys can shoot the 3. Clayton, Martin, and Richard all shooting over 36% from deep. They all take a lot of 3s, so this is a game in which all of our guards are going to have to play solid defense. They're going to have to be ready for this game. I would expect Alabama to go with a pretty guard-heavy lineup for large percentages of this game. Obviously, we've seen that a lot and has helped our offense when you're running multiple guards and going a little smaller, so to speak, with running an extra guard with Mark Sears. So I would suspect that's going to continue. I would not suspect any changes to the lineup this game. Another one is when you're looking at the big guys for Florida, right? Alex Condon has played absolutely phenomenally this year. Thomas Haw has played absolutely phenomenally this year. Chinulu has played absolutely incredibly this year, but they also bring back 7-1 Hen Logden that had the broken bone in the SEC tournament last season, right? He is coming back into the fold playing for them. In the Texas A&M game, he played 20 minutes, had 4 offensive rebounds and 4 defensive rebounds. So he's getting back into that role where he's able to play more and more and more. When you look at Alabama's game last season that Florida won, Hen Logden had 6 rebounds and Thomas Haw had 7. Condon had 7, right? Florida actually did a very, very good job on the glass against Alabama last season. The reason Alabama lost last season was more around the fact that they couldn't make a shot. And it really felt like for large stretches they couldn't defend, right? Florida has 105 points last season in Coleman. That's something I obviously expect that Nate Oates is going to be trying to clean up. But a lot of the people that played on last season's team are back for this season. Walter Clayton had 16 free throws last season. He's back for this team. Will Richard, again, 23 points. He's back. So some of the better contributors outside of like Tyrese Samuel, Zion Poland are back from last season's team. So, do keep that in mind when you're looking at Alabama and Florida this season. Is, most of the key players from Florida's side are back for this season. And especially when you're looking at a guy like Hen Logden, the 7-1 center, that gives them some extra depth in the front court that they have not had at other times this season. I did think for earlier parts of this season that it kind of felt like Florida's strength was their front court. The injury to Condon, which it does feel like he's getting better and coming back from that injury pretty well. I know he came off the bench the last couple of games, but he has been very, very good on both sides of the basketball, right? I do think that Florida is a team that can play with Alabama, right? When I look at rosters, and there's some that I just don't think match up super well, I do not think Florida is one of those. I think Florida matches up actually incredibly well with Alabama. And it's one where I think Florida is a team that really feels like an Elite Eight, Final Four style team, much in the way that I look at Alabama. As when Alabama's playing the defense they're currently playing, I think Alabama's an Elite Eight, Final Four type of team. And when I look at that out of Florida, I think that this game is going to be incredibly, incredibly good. I think this is going to be really good basketball, and I think it's going to come down to whose guards can execute, which team can play better defense, which team can not get rattled by what the officials are doing or are not doing, which teams are just letting it roll off their back and just play with what they're capable of. I think that's what's going to determine this game, right? Alabama, I talked about how Alabama was able to out-rebound Texas A&M in offensive rebounds, even though they were such an elite team. Florida is just one under them in offensive rebounds. They held their own, and they actually out-defensive rebounded A&M. Right? Florida's number 8 in rebounds this season. They have not done as good of a job getting to the free throw line on offense. They've done a pretty good job keeping teams off the free throw line on defense. They've done a pretty good job keeping teams off the three-point line, keeping teams out of the assists department, right? So again, all of these things added up. I think that this Florida team is a very good matchup for Alabama. I think this is a team that matches up very well. And I really look at this game as a pick'em, right? I look at this game as who comes out and gets the better start, right? Which scares me, honestly, right? When I'm looking at Alabama, if I was picking this game 2 weeks ago, I picked Florida. I'm not going to say to run away with it, but I really pick Florida. And I feel confident in that pick. Because of the resurgence of Alabama's defense in the last few games, because of how Alabama has played and fought with some of these better teams and really feels like they have something to prove, and it doesn't feel like they're just going through the motions, because at moments last season it really felt like we were going through the motions, and until the NCAA tournament, you never knew that Alabama had the defense in them, right? You thought they did, but you never saw it. But you never, because you had not seen it, it was hard to predict. However, over the past, let's call it 7-8 quarters, or 8 halves, I've really felt like Alabama has played solid basketball, right? I thought that Alabama has started the game much better outside of that start to that Kentucky game, right? Since the start of that Kentucky game, I think that Alabama has played much better defense. I think that Alabama has started games better. Alabama has played with the intensity that you need to play with. Alabama is being more locked into the scouting report. I think part of that's because Nate Oates has been pulling players that are not locked into the scouting report, right? But I do think that there's a lot of reasons to be positive about this team currently, right? Which has me feeling like, because Alabama is in a must-win spot, part of me is leaning towards picking Alabama. This is a home game. This is a game in which this is going to be Mark Sears' last game in Coleman Coliseum. I think there's a lot of reasons why I would say that Alabama may win this game. As I said, all of those being considered, if I picked this game 2 weeks ago, I was absolutely picking Florida. And I think now, because of what Alabama has shown me, and again, I know 2 of those are wins. One of those was a loss. We're coming off that loss against. We're coming off that loss against Mississippi State. But again, what I saw in that Kentucky game, what I saw in that Mississippi State game, what I saw in the Tennessee game, all really give me some pretty positive outlooks on what this game is going to look like. And I think that Alabama's defense and Alabama wants to be able to prove, hey, we can play with some of the big guys from a defensive perspective, right? Everyone knew Alabama's offense was elite and Alabama's offense could play with anyone in the country. But I think Alabama's wanted to prove, hey, we can play defense with some of the best against some of the better offenses. And I think this is the first chance that Alabama's going to have against a truly elite offense since they were kind of embarrassed at Missouri, and we keep talking about the embarrassment at Missouri. Obviously, the reason Alabama lost against Tennessee was not their defense. There were a few key game scenarios that they just were not successful in. But I think that Alabama is going to want to prove what they can do on defense against Florida. And inevitably, I do think Alabama wins this game. But I would expect this game to be very close. I would expect this game to feel like it's an Elite Eight Final Four game. I would not be shocked if we saw this game again in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. These teams are that good, and I would expect that much out of these teams, right? So I'm looking at this game somewhere in the neighborhood of 91-88. A higher scoring game for sure. And it could be a little higher than that, depending upon what the defensive execution looks like. But I think that both teams are going to be playing as well on defense as humanly possible. So I think part of me is going to think that, at times defense is going to win out, at times offense is going to win out. And that's going to be, like I said, somewhere 91-88. That 3 to 4 point margin is what I would expect in this game. I would expect this game to come down to the wire. I would expect that Mark Sears to try to get to the free throw line as much as humanly possible. I would expect, for Alabama to play its game and to, again, try to prove that they are able to play defense against one of the better offenses in the country and is also able to play offense against one of the better defenses in the country. So that's what I have to say. Like I said, I am predicting Alabama to win. I am not super confident in this one at all. I think that this game is very close to a pick 'em. I'm really basing this off what I've seen the last few quarters out of Alabama, few halves out of Alabama. I've been very happy with what I've seen, and so I am going to predict that Alabama wins this game, but it is really, really close, and it would not shock me if Florida is able to win this one. But as we've said, this game is hugely important for Alabama and their seeding in the SEC as well as NCAA tournaments. So we will see what happens. Again, I will be in attendance for this game that's going to be happening on Wednesday evening. I will record an episode that's going to come out. I actually may record late Wednesday evening and have an episode come out breaking this game down on Thursday, as I have something I need to deal with in the family. So I am going to try to put that episode out on Thursday to break down the Auburn game. So if you are interested in that, subscribe to the channel. That's going to come out. As always, the thread will come out to break down the Florida players in more specific detail. If you are interested in any of that, subscribe to my Twitter, subscribe here to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.